Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We are going to get started here on time. I'm Marjorie Adams. I'm going to be leading our webinar today. We're going to be talking about custom fields inside of QuickBooks Online Advanced because they're only available in the advanced version. I believe, I always throw in these I believes because sometimes, you know, Intuit just, oh, today this, oh, tomorrow that. That's what I understand it to be right now. Okay, let's go through what we are going to talk about. So first of all, I always like pointing out and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the slide deck. I always like pointing out the maximum quantity of things just so that we can understand. Because again, I think a lot of times people limit themselves in their thinking on what is possible that we can do inside of QuickBooks Online. So for custom fields, you can have 12 per type of form invoice. You can have 12 custom fields on invoices, 12 custom fields on estimates. Now, again, if I ever have somebody who has 12, I kind of want to talk to them about it and say, like, why? What are we doing? Because you can only print 3 on a form. Right, so I can only print 3 on an invoice. Do I really have 12 extra things I need to track? Now, QuickBooks Online, that could be the case a little bit because we do have some fields that aren't available in other versions of QuickBooks. So, I mean, maybe we can get up to the 12, but that's a lot of fields for somebody to have to fill in, right? That's a lot of extra fields. So you can have 12 per type of form, so 12 on the estimate. You can have 12 different on the invoice. You can have 12 per profile, 12 on the customer, 12 on the vendor, 12 on the project. And then they also have multiple choice lists, which we'll look at in a little bit. And there's a maximum quantity of 100 on the multiple choice list. And so I'll show you what that looks like. And then again, you can print 3 on a form. One of the other limitations that we have too is on importing. You can't import into all the custom fields. So not all 12 of them are available for importing. So that can also be a potential barrier if somebody is going through and doing a conversion. All right, now that we know the limitations, let's look at what we're going to be going through. So we're going to talk about create a new custom field, and then we're going to go into reporting on custom fields, because if you are setting any fields up in your system, you guys have probably heard me say this before, if you're setting any fields up in your system, you should be reporting on those fields, right? Like they should be there for a reason, not just unneeded data. And then we're going to talk about searching and then also making them inactive. So I'm going to dive in product here. I do have our demo file, not the QuickBooks Online Advanced sample file, because I am going to be talking about reporting today. And anytime we have those magic wand reports, right, I have to be in my file now because the QuickBooks Online sample file, QuickBooks Online Advanced sample file, at least it says that. I actually haven't tested it. I guess I should test it because take everything at kind of a surface value here with what they say, but it says that advanced reporting ability is not available in the sample file. So I'm in mine, but you can still follow along if you want to in the sample file with most of the things I'm doing, just not the report, some of the custom reports. Okay, so custom fields, where do we find these? So I can come in here to custom fields under the gear, right? So it's a list. Custom fields is considered a list item in the system. When we look at the list here, you can see all of the names of the custom field, the categories, we'll talk about that in a minute, where they're used, right? Sales, invoice, you know, on invoice, on the estimate, so where the fields should be enabled, and then where they're used on purchase type transactions. I always like looking at when this is showing because it helps me in one place to see the different types of transactions that QuickBooks Online has. Because sometimes, even though you come up here to new and you have it all down here, I don't know, it just puts it together a little bit more clean for me. So I actually really like it in this graph here. It helps my brain stay organized, I guess, right? And then, whereas again, in QuickBooks Desktop, if you're used to QuickBooks Desktop, what happens is you go add the field to the line, right? You add it to the item level, the line level, and then you have to go into each one of these transaction templates and add it to each template, right? So it is harder to like, did I put it on the sales receipt? I don't know. I have to go to sales receipt and look at the template. And then since you can have different templates also, right? It might be on this template, but it's not on that template. And anyway, so it is a little bit more work than this nice clean view that's available here. Over on the top, we do have the give feedback button. I would suggest. I always point this out or try to because some of the things I'm going to say today, I might ask you to give some feedback for because the more they hear it, the more likely they are going to be to, they being the developers over at Intuit, will be to make changes, okay? And then we have the add field, which we're going to go ahead and do now. So when I create a new custom field, they do have suggestions on top here. So if I click sales rep, it just fills it in for me. I love that it defaults to data type of drop-down list. But it's a strange thing because when I click add field, it does have customer type here. And that was something that threw me even when I was recently talking to developers, because when you go in and create a new customer, customer type is actually a field on the customer now, right? So they have set it up as a field. So it is a little confusing. They need to update that and take it off of the suggestions for custom fields. But what they don't have in here is sales rep, right? So that's a field that everybody gets confused by. They say, oh, you know, sales rep in other systems, most systems, sales rep sits at the customer level, and it's not something that we have to add as a custom field. But I like that they call it out here because if you're like, oh, what should I use this for? You say sales rep, then there you go. Now you know. So coming over, so you can put in a type. This is going to be the name of the field on the transactions. This is what they're going to see. So you want to make sure that this is easy to understand. Sometimes in other systems, when you're setting up the name of the field, you have to do things like, you know, underscore so that the field name is correct. That's not what this is. This name is just a surface level name. The behind the scenes list item or list ID will be created automatically, like other things in QuickBooks. The data type here, so we have text and number. So that is basically like a free type field, right? Then we have just number. Then we have dates available, and then we have a drop-down list. So we're going to create one of each type so that we can see all of them. So text and number. I'm going to add all of my types to transactions just because that way we're looking in one place. But the category section here, it's a little bit different than what we're used to seeing in some other systems. So they have, you can choose select category customer, and that means that this will show up on the customer list. But the thing is that down below here, I can still choose to put that on vendor forms. So it doesn't really make sense why it says customer. Transaction is, of course, just what it sounds. Which transactions would you like to add this to? Vendor is, of course, adding it to the vendor list. So when you edit a vendor, it'll show there. Project would be adding it to the project list. So when you add a project, it'll show there. The thing that's different about custom vendor and projects is that if you fill them in at the list level, right? So if I fill in the sales rep on the customer, it will default fill in on the transaction, okay? And right now, all of these sit at the header level of a transaction, meaning the top section, not the lines, right? So you choose it one time. You don't have multiple sales reps that can be chosen, one per line. You choose it just at the header section, so one per transaction, okay? Those are categories. Then down below here is where we select which form. So it's just a repeat of what you're seeing over here in these boxes. Which forms do we want to show this on? So I'm going to, again, select transaction. I'm going to choose invoice so we can see it on it. Now here's where you have the print on forms. Of course, we would only be able to print max of 3 custom fields on any one of the forms. Okay, and go ahead and say save. So there is our free type field. Once you set it up in the system, you cannot change the data type. You also cannot delete. But you can make it active, okay? So there's that. All right, let's go ahead and add another one. So I'm going to so that was text and number. I shouldn't have made that one sales rep. So let me edit. I'm going to make this one notes, let's just say, because sales rep should be a drop down. Now, I really very much so strongly have a very big passion about making sure that the data type is pretty much only drop down list. Because doing free type in here, free type cannot really be organized well if somebody spells, you know, Marjorie, M-A-J-O-R-E-O-R-I-E, which I get all the time, Majorie, then Marjorie and Majorie will not show up on reports effectively, right? So I like using drop-down lists. Don't make people type things in over and over again if we can give them a standard answer or something, right, that they can just pick. So if I'm going to choose a number, so maybe I'll say something like employee count, and we're going to put it again on transactions. I'm going to add to invoice and say save. We're going to add a field for date, and it says like business start date. Okay, and we're going to choose a date over here. And I'm going to do transaction and invoice again, save. And then the last one I'll finally add is the sales rep. And I'll do a multiple choice list. Okay, so this is where we were talking about that we have a limit of 100, right? So on the multiple choice, you can have a limit of 100 sales reps in the system, okay? All right, so I'm going to say, you know, John, Rob, Sally, and Sandra. Okay, and then you can add additionals in here. So transaction, invoice, and say save. Now all of these are showing up on my list here. I had added project manager when I was doing some testing earlier today, just making sure everything was correct. I did have to choose a different sample file. One of my sample files, nothing ever works in it. So one of our internal demo files, nothing ever works. The search wasn't working, so I had to flip on over to this new one that has less things in it. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and when I come into an invoice, we're going to create a couple different invoices. This new look of invoices, by the way, super confusing. I love when they change looks of things because I'm just kidding. I hate when they change looks of things. It's like my worst. It's like the worst thing to me. It throws me off. I'm sure it throws everybody off. I understand what the intent is, and I do like the intent, but things like, I mean, you can see here, where's my save? Where's my copy? You know, those kinds of things. I'm like, where are these things? But I'm just going to leave it because this might be what you guys see today too. So I'm going to go ahead and add to Bob's Chop Shop. Right, over on the side we have some filters. You can see those filters, and I don't want to see those filters, so I can close out of it. Down below here, I have all of my custom fields. Now I am a little bit zoomed in. You can choose, right, to zoom out and make it smaller so you can see more on your screen. Depends on how great your eyesight is, I guess. I do have project manager. That's the one field I had added before. Notes is my free type field. Right. Notice that it says hidden underneath. That means it's not printed. I have employee count here. So if I tried to type numbers, it would not let me. So I'll say 25. And I can put 0.00, whatever, right? Business start date, it does go to a calendar feature, which is wonderful. Some of the other systems don't always do that. So I'll say that they started in business well, once I click the calendar, it won't let me click the numbers. There we go, 5/15/2002. And then I have my sales rep field. So again, a drop down. So we see all those fields that we just set up, and now they're here on the transaction. I don't know why my save. Oh, I didn't put any. I didn't put any information on the transaction. I got so excited about my custom fields, I forgot. Down below here, I'm going to add some services and just put in $8,500 and say save. Okay, now it won't, okay, even though I can't see it, save and new. Let's do save and new. Okay, and I'm going to do one more transaction, filling in all of these fields, and do it to Fourlane. We're going to choose a project manager of Laura. Again, I'm going to say other things here. Nope. The employee count will be 800. Not how many employees we have here at Fourlane, but that's okay. We'll say they just started in business recently, and the sales rep is John. Okay, now I'm not going to forget to put some stuff on here this time, and $75,000, and say save and close. Okay, so we have a couple of invoices that we create in the system. Pretty straightforward in how it looks, right? Once I say it's on the invoice here, it's on the invoice. Now, one of the things that's pretty fascinating about a field is that, see, I can say, show me all the inactive fields. So you can't delete, but you can make inactive. I can choose to make this field active again, right? This one that I was playing with earlier. But I wanted to show you what happens when I make it inactive. One of the things is it does pop up a notice, and it says making custom fields inactive means you can still see them on the forms you've used, but not on new forms, right? So if it was used previously, it would still show up there, but it wouldn't be showing up if I went to go create a new invoice again. So that is very interesting. But it's good to know that when you make something inactive, right, it's still going to show up on reports and all that stuff. It'll still be there. It's not like it goes away. Okay, so now that we have a couple transactions in there, let's talk about some reports. Now, before I go into these reports, I did find a really great article, and I wanted to show it to you because I haven't seen, this is something that Fourlane has done for years, is kind of had these like, okay, where can we, where's this used? So there's this article, if you want to search for it, use custom fields and reports on QuickBooks Online Advanced. And this at the very bottom, and it's rolled up very small, right? So it's kind of hard to see, but it does show in table form the different reports that are available in QuickBooks, and it shows you where custom fields can be used. So it can be added, so AR aging detail, you can add a custom field as a column, you cannot sort by the custom field, you cannot group by the custom field, but you can filter by the custom field. So it's a really cool resource that is being made available by Intuit, and I'm slightly pumped and excited about it because it's showing the completeness of when they're rolling things out in QuickBooks Online, how complete they are in updating, you know, tutorials and bits of information online. It's just different than some of the things that I've seen with Intuit in the past. So I'm very excited about this. I think it's really neat because they have these things, right? They internally have this data. They know which report because they have to build the logic into the report for these things to happen. But the fact that they're giving it to us without us having to create it ourselves is a really great step in the right direction for Intuit. So that's cool. So I wanted to show you that. All right, so let's go ahead. Oops, I was going to go create an invoice. Let's go ahead over here to reports. So we're going to look at first the AR aging detail report. So what's interesting, right, is it's on the AR aging detail, but it's not on the AP aging detail. It's not on the vendor balance detail. So it's strange. It's just strange how they pick and choose. My guess is that they're going to just start slowly adding it to these reports, right? So once I have this report open, you can see this is not one of those magic wand reports that I call, you know, the magic wand. This is just one of the standard kind of QBO reports. If you scroll up, you can come over to customize and we can change our columns. And down below here, you can see, oh, look at EE count and notes and sales rep and project manager. All of those things are available to add to reports, okay? And so now I have them on here and you can see all of the fun notes. Now on this one, because it's one of the, not one of the magic wand reports, I cannot do things like, I can filter by, right? Since I added it to the report, I can filter by project manager, but I can't group by, right? There's no group by available here. So that's really neat. If we look at, you can I was going to talk about the vendor ones, but we're just going to stick with customer because I'm running up against time here. When we go back to our reports list, so of course we have our magic reports in QuickBooks Online Advanced, which is my most favorite thing to play with. So I can create a new report. Oftentimes I like to create reports from the blank and add everything as I go, but in this case I know we're just looking at invoices because I just created 2 invoices, and so I'm going to use one of theirs. So now I can tell that I'm in the Magic Wand report, right, because I have this pivot and group and filter showing up top here. So now I'm in this place where I have a lot more that I can do. In our columns, I can come over. It's easiest to search through columns, right? But if you click on Invoice and scroll to the bottom of that invoice section, it will show the custom fields there. So again, if I wanted to add these custom fields, and sales rep, all of those custom fields are now added to my report as columns. Oh, I have it showing as last month, so I'm going to show it as this fiscal year. There we go. Now I'll have some actual data on my report here. Okay. So if I scroll over to the side, so we can see, here's my free type field. I have my employee count. I have my business start date, and I have my sales rep. So of course we can pivot this. When you choose pivot, notice that you can pivot by all of these, including notes, so including that free type field. So I can say I want to see all the sales reps going down the rows here, and I want to see all of the project managers in the columns, and I want to see the amount, and it will pivot it out for me, right? So John is the only sales rep I guess we used, and did I only choose John? Whoops. And then Kat, Alicia, Laura are the different project managers that have been working with John. Okay. All right, so that's pivot. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off pivot. There we go. Then we have group by. So you can also on this detail report choose to go in and group by due date, right? I'm sorry, due date. What am I talking about? Business start date. So if I add that, and then I can do by project manager. It says you could add. I guess it won't let me add it. That's funny. I didn't test it before. So I guess it lets it choose. Oh, business start date by year, by quarter. There we go. I was like, I thought I did that earlier. So when I choose business start date, you can group them by like month, by quarter, by year, which isn't very effective because I did all these today. You can do it group by project manager. And then you can even add additional. So I can group by project manager, and then I can do a subgroup by, you know, employee count or whatever, right? So in those project managers, if any of them had an employee count, Kat had one that had an employee count, then I would be able to see that. Okay, so pretty cool that you can utilize those to do that. Let me clear all groups. We do have filters, right? And I can, if it's on this report, I can filter by. So all of those very, very powerful fields. Again, when I say, when we are utilizing, right, and putting stuff in the system, it is best if we are doing something on a report. So I always, when we talk with customers, we say, okay, we want to add this custom field into the system. Then the immediate thing that we go to after we add the custom field in and figure out where, right, where is that data going to go in the system? The next step is, okay, what are we going to report? What reports do we need to report on that data? So those two things should go hand in hand. So again, the biggest thing, even though I don't like free type fields because it makes it hard, but it is kind of cool that you can still group by these free type fields in here. So it's still group. All right. The last thing about custom fields I just wanted to make sure to show today is the search. So up top here, if I start typing, let's just say cat, because that was one of the people we showed here. So if I type cat, I don't see anything, right? Cat's not showing in here. But we do have this advanced search area over here. And again, this is where I couldn't get to in my other sample file that we have, demo file. But if I come in, I can click on, you see here, the additional filters. And so I could come down here and select the project manager of CAT. And when I do that, right, it will show me only the transactions with CAT on it. Okay, so I know it's not a global search, right? So that's one of the things we point out. It's not a global search. If I type CAT here, if it's a global search, it should, whoops, if I can spell, it should pull all the transactions up. But by using that advanced search feature, we can now filter down and get to something faster, right? And you can drop those into Excel, which is really cool, really cool. Okay. I think I could do a whole 30 minutes just on this advanced feature. Also notice here that it pops it here. So if I wanted to do search filter by project manager CAT and then also filter by employee count of 25, it would show that. And then I go, oh, wait, no, okay, I don't want that. I can remove it. So really neat. This advanced search is really neat too. Okay, the last part I just was going to go over, it was make inactive, so we already did that. So coming up, we are going to go back. Last week we did task management and workflows a little bit. We're going to go back into that around accounts receivable workflows. We talked about some vendor workflows, accounts payable workflows last week. And then we have these are some of the things that I would like to get to in the future. I did throw in the custom fields one there because I had some conversations with Intuit around custom fields. So I said, let me just do that now since it's fresh on my brain. All right, that's all I've got for you guys this week. And I look forward to seeing y'all next week.